Welcome to session 9 of Coping with COVID-19. This session is going to talk a little bit about power. My name is Gerry Vassar, President and CEO of Lakeside.
My name is Diane Wagenhals. I am the Program Director for Lakeside Global Institute.
We keep saying that because we want to make sure you know who we are. So we do that every session just to make sure that those that tune in for the first time know where we come from.
Helps me know who you are.
That's true. That's true. On our more interesting days, we get to identify with each other, which is very interesting because a lot of people have told me during COVID-19 their brain has gone to mush. And other things that they have realized is the fact that they have formally been able to do things, say things, go out and shop, leave home when they want to, go pick up.
Took it all for granted.
See, and we were doing all this activity and having all this freedom. I could run to the drugstore and pick up something without wearing a mask and gloves. And now all these rules have come upon us. And the rules are about now safety and health and social distancing, and I have to wear a mask, and the whole world looks weird. And I have people over me telling me things like, I can't go to school, I can't go to work, I can't do this and I can't do that, you have to stay home, all of the things that are just really hard to take. And it boils down to the fact that I had control and I had a power over my circumstances, and all of a sudden it's gone. And that's causing all kinds of issues. I mean, I'm thinking about some of the protests that are going on, and I understand the rationale. People want to get back to work, but what are they really saying? Give me my power back to earn money, to work, to be out in the world, to manage my family, to be able to go to certain stores to get things that I've formerly gotten, or I need to fix my computer and there isn't any way to do it unless I can find a way to do it on the internet. So it's an interesting time because of COVID-19, because we've really lost that sense of power. And I guess the question is, why is that so important to us in how we do life in terms of I get very irritated when I don't have my personal power.
So why is it important?
Yeah.
And why do we seek power?
Yeah.
And power in some ways is our identity. Power it speaks to our abilities to be all we can be in the Army. No, but we can be, sorry. But it is, so much of our world is about seeking power, finding power. Sometimes it's destructive. It's like I want power over somebody.
Right.
But power is a force that humans seek. And in this time, like you're saying, without even realizing that we had all those other powers, now all of a sudden they're taken away from us. And we have a lot of different reactions to that. And you mentioned some of those reactions because that power is no longer, we don't have access to it. We got robbed somehow.
So when I think of those kinds of issues, I think about how capable do I feel now?
Right.
I don't feel very capable.
Right.
If I'm the provider for my home, or
Right.
I'm working at Lakeside and doing projects,
Right.
all of a sudden there is a sense in which I'm really grasping for some purpose, some identity.
Right.
And that really talks to the fact that I have some kind of control over what's going on. And when we lose control, then we get into all kinds of other reactions that we've talked today about. We talked about in the last session about anxiety and what that means and other things like that. So what does it feel like for us to, what's going on in our brain per se when we're losing power?
Yeah, and how about, I combine that with feeling helpless.
Helpless, powerless.
Yeah.
Right.
Not
a good place.
Not a good place.
Right.
Not a good place. And I think it challenges the creative side of our brain that wants to be able to get out and do. We're always thinking about things and planning things. There's a certain power in being able to do that, to access our creativity or our abilities to do things. And that's all brain stuff.
So in feeling that, I mean, I think we can discuss all the powers that we lose for infinitum, because I can enumerate a number of them, of things that I formerly could do that I can't do? Of course, I'm thankful for Amazon because that gives me a lot of power. I can order something, have it come in, don't have to go to the store all the time, and that's a great blessing, honestly, that we have in terms of the internet services. But if we don't have power to do the things that we believe we're capable of, it's really hard to figure out what do we do with that energy. What do we do to create power? And I think part of this whole process is beginning to say, well, what can I do? I thought what was helpful that you've already talked about is find ways to be creative. I have to start thinking differently about how in a contained space do I keep a level of power. So your suggestions on that?
An observation
Okay.
of what's going on right now, that it just warms my heart to see that, and I guess this is about American pride, maybe. Maybe it happens in other places, but as Americans, our creativity has been kicking in like crazy, that people are claiming the power to address some of this, hopefully in healthy ways. Some of it, they're making some, what we might say, unhealthy choices. But if you look at it from a power perspective, people are realizing they have the power, even if you're shut in your house. The people that are hanging out of windows and, on balconies and all that, applauding the healthcare workers and all the people who are out there doing, and they've set up rituals of clapping and banging on pots and pans. That's a force. That's creating the energy that comes from deciding, I am going to claim some power. I'm going to claim the power to celebrate or to congratulate or to thank. That's a power, the power we have to do that creative kinds of things. We have power to reach out to people that we care for. We have power when it's, we've talked about how you can have power over your own mind and how you're thinking. That those are powers we can claim. One of the things that came to mind when we were talking about doing this topic, I happen to love the movie Wizard of Oz. And if you remember towards the end, when she had the ruby slippers on and the Wicked Witch of whatever, whatever it was, said that she had the power all along to go home. Now, if she had recognized that she had the power right after she got those ruby slippers, it would have been a really short movie. But that to me struck me that how often do we have power, but we just don't know it. And being able to pause and say, what powers do I have? I think that's why the movies with all the superheroes and all that, tap something in us about wanting to know that there might be some powers that exist, and we admire them when they're exaggerated in those movies. But when you stop to think about it, isn't that something as human beings that we need? And there's a negative kind of power, like if I think power is a finite there's a finite quantity of power. That's a little hard to say. I might want to try to take your power and overpower you because that's going to make me feel powerful. That's a lot of what happens in fights and sibling rivalry and other things, is that somebody feels like somebody has stepped on something that they shouldn't. They've violated, and they're taking away their power.
So one consequence of feeling powerless is that I might try to steal away someone else's power.
Right.
Because I'm frustrated, feeling it, incapable,
Right.
and working through that process. And,
Right.
and I'm going to be so exasperated by that, I've got to move over and take someone
Right.
else's power, which
Right.
causes a lot of conflict, obviously.
Right. Because the other person has to either fight, submit. What are they going to do? And that can start a lot of conflict, which may be part of what is happening as people feel they can't see the power they have, and they feel so helpless right now and powerless. They're like that. That's going to. We talked about anxiety. That can produce a lot of anxiety, and that can produce these desires inside.
So as we think about this, I mean, I hear something really important, at least in terms of a lot of things that could be possible in this process of how do we gain personal power. We know we're confined. We know that people are making decisions for us. There are people that are rebelling against the system, which probably might not be the wisest thing to do. But I think that within our domain, wherever we exist, there are things we can do to assert our own power. I think that there are things like I thought about picking up another instrument, taking lessons online.
Yeah.
As an example of something I can do to give me a sense of, okay, I've never played that instrument. I happen to have one. Maybe I'll learn to play that instrument.
You're claiming a power that you don't know yet how to exactly do it, but you're claiming your power because you've had other experiences knowing you could learn it.
Right. And then that whole idea of working with your hands and doing creative things and doing projects. I mean, I know the projects I would like to have done that I never got to.
Right.
Well, now my outdoor shed is very clean. I've got that all cleaned out. Because I know some people that do closets. I know some people that do a lot of different things.
I can't relate, but go ahead.
But I see a lot of situations where we can actually be creative.
Right.
We can begin to have some purpose in some of the things we're accomplishing.
Yeah.
And it does give you a sense of satisfaction and a sense of power and a sense of confidence. It just has to be funneled differently in light of the circumstances that we're facing.
When I think about what's going on right now, I think people are suddenly given the power to have more time to make decisions about what they want to do, instead of having somebody around them hovering and watching what they're doing or whatever in a job setting.
Right.
So of course, I'm not doing that because you're my boss and I'm working tirelessly. But, this whole idea of all of a sudden you can claim your power to make some choices, and that can feel really good, especially, I think, identifying it as a healthy thing.
Right.
That I have this power to choose things that maybe I haven't had before.
Right.
And relish that.
And I think that the lack of having to go to work where people are telling us what to do and the opportunity to be in our home and to tell myself what I'm going to do and actually have the permission to enjoy it and to feel a sense of accomplishment, use my strengths, do things that are good for me, might make this crisis a little bit easier to tolerate.
People at the end of this, we never want this, but there may be opportunities to celebrate power that we can now claim, and we're not going to let go of it. Once we've realized we can do this, knowing, again, I'm coming back to the spirit of Americans in general, we're a pretty competitive, feisty group of people.
Right, right.
So at least some of us are.
Right, right. So maybe in the area of dealing with our power with COVID-19, there's some benefits. There's some things that we can claim and to be creative and to work diligently to say, how can I maintain my personal power when it feels like I'm losing so much? Maybe we could turn that to gaining some things that might be fun and creative and good.
You can also teach your kids about power.
Absolutely.
Help your kids realize because so often childhood is about feeling powerless. So being able to give them powers so that they're also going to benefit from the growth that comes when you have power.
So we can not only model it for them, teach it to them, but enjoy it for ourselves. Yeah. So there's some thoughts about personal power. Maybe some of us are feeling like we've lost a lot of capability and power in that, and we need to rethink it and maybe think, well, how can I reestablish some of the power that I've lost so that I'm feeling a little bit more stable and a little bit more like I'm able to accomplish and achieve. So with that, we will close this session. Thank you for joining us for Coping with COVID-19.